All right, today we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to dive deep into the world of digital forensics, a world where, believe it or not, every single line of code can tell a story, and every file you think you've deleted might just be a ghost waiting to testify.
So that's really the heart of it all. We're about to see exactly how forensic experts can, well, make a machine talk. And not just talk, but reveal secrets the user thought were buried forever.
Okay, so our story today centers on a company called Biotech X, and they've got a big problem. They're pretty sure that an ex-employee, a guy named Henry Hunter, didn't just walk out the door with a box of his personal stuff. Nope. They think he walked away with their crown jewels, their most valuable secrets.
So here's how the battle lines are drawn. On one side, you have Biotech X. They're accusing Hunter of stealing two massive things: the secret sauce for their main product, BioFixit, and their entire customer list. Ouch. But Hunter's story? Totally different. He's saying, I'm innocent. Any data you found on my stuff is ancient, from way before I even left the company.
And you're not going to believe this. The whole case, everything, the accusations, the defense, it all comes down to the digital clues hidden on, wait for it, a single floppy disk. Yeah, a floppy disk, the kind you probably haven't seen in years, and it was found in Hunter's possession.
All right, so the first major challenge for the investigators was finding these files that Hunter swore he didn't even have. And this brings us to a really fundamental question, something you've probably done a million times. When you drag a file to the trash and hit empty, what are you actually doing? Where does that file go?
Well, to get deletion, you first have to get the file system. And the best way to think about it is like a library's old card catalog. You know, those wooden drawers full of cards. The catalog doesn't hold the books, right? It just tells you where to find the books. Your computer's file system does pretty much the exact same thing for your data. So when you see a list of your files and folders, just like this directory from the actual floppy disk in our case, you're basically looking at the friendly, public-facing part of that card catalog. It's just a neat, organized list of all the books or files that you can get to.
Okay, but behind the scenes, under the hood, it's a bit more involved. When your computer needs to read a file, it first looks up the name in that directory. That points it to the very first piece of the file. From there, it follows this chain of digital breadcrumbs, like Hansel and Gretel, using a map called the File Allocation Table, or FAT for short. This FAT just links all the little pieces together, one by one, until the whole file is read.
And this, right here, is the crucial part. This is the difference between an active file and a so-called deleted one. When you hit delete, the computer doesn't bother to actually erase the data. That takes too long. Instead, it just puts a little mark on the file name. And this is the important bit. It breaks the first link in that chain of breadcrumbs. The data's all still there, but the map to find it has been torn up.
So what this really means is that your deleted file is just sitting there. It's invisible to you, but it's waiting for some new data to come along and write over it. And until that happens, a good digital detective can often tape that map right back together and recover the file.
All right, let's move on to the next clue. So after the investigators successfully recovered that customer list, it was a file called contacts.xls, they noticed something really weird about its timestamps. Something that just seemed to defy the laws of time.
Check this out. How can a file be modified before it was even created? The file on Hunter's disk said it was last modified back in 2001, but created in 2003. It's like a time paradox, right? Your first thought might be, aha, someone was clumsily trying to tamper with the evidence, but the real answer is way more interesting.
You see, it all comes down to these super specific, unchangeable rules that file systems follow for timestamps. If you just move a file around on the same disk, the timestamps don't change. But if you copy a file to a new disk, like from a computer to a floppy, the system gives it a brand new created time, the exact moment you made the copy. But it keeps the original modified time. And boom! Just like that, this impossible timestamp isn't evidence of tampering at all. It's the digital fingerprint of a file being copied. This is the smoking gun. It proves the customer list wasn't some old file that had been sitting on that disk for years. No, it was actively copied from Hunter's work computer over at Biotech's.
But hold on, because the most damning piece of evidence was still to come. And this wasn't an active file. It wasn't even a fully deleted file. No, this clue was found hiding in the little digital nooks and crannies of the disk. You could call them ghosts in the machine.
This secret hiding spot has a name: uninitialized space. Here's a way to think about it. Imagine you've got a shoebox, and inside is a big pair of boots. You take the boots out, and you put a small pair of sandals in. The box is still a shoebox, but all that empty space around the sandals, that's uninitialized space, and it might still have some dust or residue from the boots that were there before.
And it's the same on a disk. A computer gives a new file a certain amount of space to live in, like that whole shoebox. But the file itself might be smaller. It might not fill up the whole space. And that little gap, that leftover area between the end of the new file's actual data and the total space it was assigned, that's where tiny pieces of old, overwritten data can get trapped. It's like a digital time capsule.
You know, investigators find these sorts of clues all the time. People who are trying to cover their tracks, they often get clever, or they think they're being clever. They'll do things like change their computer's clock to try and create a fake alibi, but guess what? Even that leaves a digital trace, like this log entry right here. The computer, it seems, is always its own best witness.
Okay, so let's put it all together. We have recovered deleted files, we have timestamps that tell a story of their own, and we have tiny fragments of data hiding in the gaps. It's time to assemble this puzzle and see what story this old floppy disk really has to tell. In this timeline, well, this is the final nail in the coffin. By looking at exactly where the data was physically located on the disk, investigators created an undeniable sequence of events. First, there's a fragment of an old document from April 14th. Then, sometime after that, the stolen biofixed data gets written to the disk, partially overwriting that old file. And finally, on May 14th, a brand new document from Hunter gets created, partially overwriting the stolen data.
Now this is the absolute kicker. Remember what Hunter claimed. He said all that data was old, from back in 2002. But this digital archaeology, the very layering of the files on the disk, absolutely proves that the stolen data was placed on that disk sometime between mid-April and mid-May of 2003, which just so happens to be right when he left the company. His alibi? Completely shattered.
So, let's just sum it all up. The whole case against Hunter really stood on 3 digital pillars. First, his deleted files weren't really gone, were they? Second, those bizarre timestamps proved he actively copied the customer list. And third, the physical location of those data fragments created a perfect timeline that just destroyed his alibi.
And the amazing thing about all of this is that it's not magic, it's science. Digital forensics is all about understanding the incredibly strict, logical rules that a computer system follows for everything it does, storing, copying, deleting, and then learning how to read the story that those rules inevitably leave behind. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Every single thing you do on your devices, every day, leaves a similar kind of trail, a digital story. So the only question left is, what secrets are hidden in your code?